This is In Character. I'm your host, Gerard Robinson, Vice President for Education at the Advanced Studies in Culture Foundation.
Since last time we had a chance to come together to talk about your work and how it relates to culture, anything you want to share with us about some things that have taken place since our last discussion?
Well, my state board is continuing to monitor the COVID situation, of course, and we are in Louisiana trying to get as many kids back to school on a full-time basis as possible. We have about 70% of our students in schools right now, but some of that has included some hybrid learning. So the state board has been looking at that. We also have had some real exciting work published, some teacher preparation work that we had actually started. I don't know. I think I've been working on it for almost a decade now. There was a CCSSO task force report that came out, I think, in 2012, but we've actually published information on our preparation program so that future teachers are able to make an educated choice on their preparation program. So it's really exciting that we help. I mean, we've had a lot of information about our programs in the past, but this is actually bringing the information to students when they're making choices about becoming teachers. So yeah, it's interesting to see something like that become prime time after working on it for so long.
So as a school board member, be with Bessie, your state has to deal with a lot of emergencies, primarily because of hurricanes and everything else. Are there some lessons from what your board had to deal with during hurricane season or other tragedies that you've learned to be able to implement as we deal with the pandemic situation in your state?
Absolutely. I think the biggest conversation that you're hearing lately is the question of should children be tested, and then if they are tested, how should that information be used? And we have a history with this. There were some significant floods in 2016 where we put some policies in place that I think has been fair to the educators, but also gives us some transparency with the public. And so we have some lessons from that perspective. And kids will be taking tests in Louisiana. I think it's really important in our state to know exactly where our students are. But we're going to have conversations about the most appropriate use of those test scores. And so we have decided that those test scores are not going to be calculated into the teacher evaluations. And I think and we made that decision early on. So I think that brought a level of comfort to our teachers, but we haven't made decisions about what that looks like in terms of our accountability system. We're certainly having a lot of conversations, and testing season is getting started. So our students our districts are putting things in place to actually test the students, and we will be looking at that information as it becomes available, and then just making decisions about the best way to use it. So one decision that we've already put in place is that you won't have schools that are going to be identified as the schools that are in need of improvement, like the various labels that we have for that, unless, of course, a local superintendent feels like that would be helpful, because a lot of schools that have that classification are eligible for more grant funding. And so we are really working with our local educators and making decisions, I think, that are going to be helpful for them. And we think that this test information, the results that we get back, will really help us make decisions about the kind of interventions that our students need. So, I think the big conversation right now is, how do you utilize this influx of federal dollars in a way to actually make a difference with kids? And so we'll build on the test results. I know our districts are giving interim assessments and those kinds of things to figure out what it is exactly that our kids need and how we might support them during this time.
Well, I know you've always been committed to accountability. And so when I hear you talk about this, it's because you really are trying to make sure we can still measure what students know, keep schools accountable, and at the same time, keep in context the situation that we're in. Last question, can you give us a sneak peek into the CCSSO study that you mentioned, maybe a couple of takeaways before I guess we all get a chance to read it?
Yeah, well, this was actually a study from 2012. So that was the educator preparation, the CCSSO task force report on educator preparation. And so one of our state has really acted on the data piece of that. We've also worked with our preparation programs, and like I said, there's been a decade of work connected to it. But if you go, I think it's like Louisiana Preparation Programs.com or something like that. And I can track it down for you and share it with you so that you can share it out. But it allows people to look at our institutions and see how they're performing. It's been an opportunity for our institutions to grow. They've spoken of how they've been able to use that feedback and make changes in their programs, which is really what we want to do, right? Like, no matter how good you are, you want to keep getting better. And so that has been that's been the focus of our work. And in a state like Louisiana, we have a long way to go, but we have people committed to making the right things happen for our children.
For people in your state and those across the country who are going to watch this, you're a state school board member. We often don't get a chance to see the day-to-day workings of the state level. What can we do as parents, as taxpayers, to support you and others in that position?
Yeah. Well, I think the most important is to support the kids, and don't think we can overestimate how important it is to give kids the things that they need on a daily basis, including that human interaction. Just talking to kids and checking in on them are really important. Reading with kids is really important. We've had the medical profession have really stepped in to help us come up with the guidelines for safely opening our schools during the global pandemic. And, my push to them was like, now look, we've all come to the table. We've done this really important work together, but don't leave us because you meet the kids way before we do. And so I've really pushed on the physicians and said, if every pediatrician would talk to parents about the importance of reading with kids, it would really help us. And so I think we all have an opportunity to influence for the good. And I think it's just realizing that, and every chance that we do, is advocating for children. So much of what we need to accomplish will be possible when we all come together and focus on meeting kids' needs and helping them to successfully move through the various milestones.
That's a really good point about having physicians start doing the early work, because you're right, they're going to see the physician long before they get a chance to see state board members and others. That's actually giving me something to think about at a different level. Well, Holly, as always, good to speak with you. As you know, I was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, so you can tell those guys you speak to down there, I say hello. Keep up the good work and know that you have a colleague here at NCARE.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Take care.